Good evening. The Planning Commission meeting of February 1st, 2023 is called to order. The Planning Commission meeting is being broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's web page, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/MikeGlendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current Planning Commission agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Tarachian?
Here.
Commissioner Fuentes?
Here.
Commissioner Manassian?
Here.
Commissioner Shabazian? Chairperson Lee?
Here. Can we get a report regarding posting of the agenda?
The agenda for the February 1st, 2023 regular meeting of the Glendale Planning Commission was posted on January 25, 2023 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to the next item, approval of minutes.
I'm going to, pardon me, Mr. Chair, I think number 3 is the election of chairperson and chairperson pro tem.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I was looking at the wrong agenda here. Okay, election of chairperson and chairperson pro tem. Okay. It is time to elect a new chairperson. First, I'll ask staff to open the election process. They'll ask for nominations. No second is needed. After all nominations have been received, staff will call for a vote on the first nomination. If a majority vote is received, then a new chairperson is elected. If not, then staff will repeat the voting process with the second nomination until a new chairperson is elected. Staff, we are ready to start the election.
Great. I will now open the floor to accept any nominations for chair of the Planning Commission.
May I make a nomination? I'd like to nominate our Commissioner Fuentes for our next chair.
Any other nominations?
I'll also nominate Commissioner Fuentes.
Any other nominations?
I'll also.
Well, I think we'll get to a vote. But are there any other different nominations? Okay. Hearing none, I will now take a vote for for new chairperson, Commissioner Tarachian. This would be on the nomination of Commissioner Fuentes.
Yes.
Commissioner Manassian?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Happily, aye.
Commissioner Fuentes?
Yes.
Okay. As noted, we now have a new chairperson, and we will ceremoniously switch seats.
Okay, and we'll switch seats. Hand you the gavel. There you go.
And then
Thank you.
Okay, we'll switch.
we will repeat this process for chairperson pro tem with Chairperson Fuentes leading the call for nomination.
Are you leaving all the things here? Okay. And you're not there.
My microphone is on.
Ah, boy. Yep, okay. Okay, well, then we'll continue on with the election of a new
Pro tem.
pro
Chairperson
tem.
pro tem. So I will do the same repeat and make a call for nominations for Chairperson pro tem for the Planning Commission.
I have a question. Are we able to nominate even if the commissioner is not present?
I believe you can. I would defer a little bit to Ms. Van Meiden.
It's not typically done. Commission Chair Fuentes, members of the commission, I don't know whether there's a conversation that's been had or a confirmation of the conversation. That would be important to know, but typically the person needs to be.
May I make a recommendation
Sure.
and a suggestion? That is, since you are the chairperson, I think, we'll, defer to you so that, who you feel comfortable with.
Well, I was thinking of nominating Commissioner Shabazian, and I know due to her circumstance, just having a baby, she was not able to make it tonight, but I had a communication with her, and she's willing and able to be.
I'll make the suggestion that we maybe continue that piece. We've done election of a chairperson, but we continue the election of a chairperson pro tem for when there's the full body.
That will be great also. Yeah, I think, is everyone agreeable with
We
that?
need to
Okay,
take a motion
then
and vote on that.
we'll just defer it when everyone is present.
You can make a clear record by making a motion to continue the appointment of the nomination, a selection of a pro tem until the
Okay.
next
And then
planning
I'll do
commission
a roll
meeting.
Yeah,
call on
can I
that,
have a
so-
motion to,
Yeah, I move to defer. Yeah.
okay,
And then I think there's agreement, or do we want to take a vote?
yes.
Vote is always the clearest record.
Okay, Commissioner Tarachian,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Manassian,
Yes.
Chairperson Fuentes.
Aye. Okay, that takes care of that. Next item is approval of minutes from the meeting of November 16, 2022.
I'll entertain a motion in a second.
So move.
Second.
Minutes are adopted as presented. Next is oral communication.
Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda, and each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Planning Commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. Anyone here for oral communication? I don't see any cards. No cards, okay. Moving on, board commission member comments? Nothing. They're all quiet. Huh? Okay, item 7, let's go to old business. 7A is 3810, 3816 4th Avenue, tentative parcel map, case number PPM 2113-643, GLN 1644. Note that this project was taken off the Planning Commission meeting calendar and will be rescheduled and renoticed. So, do I still read the description?
No.
Okay, then go ahead.
Good evening, good evening, Planning Commission members. Staff is recommending that this parcel map be taken off the Planning Commission agenda calendar. Excuse me. It has been on the Planning Commission agenda since April of last year and continued a number of times. And staff will be renoticing it, renoticing the case when and if it proceeds.
So do we need a vote to take it off calendar? No more. Okay, great. So noted.
Are there any cards?
Anyone on this item? I didn't have any cards. So. He can fill it out later. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, it's Serge Tashchian. I'm the owner of 3810 to 3816 4th Avenue. With regards to Mr. Kiesel's recommendation that this item be taken off calendar, I'm going to request that the commission object to that. The reason why project has been continuously continued was due to numerous errors within the planning commission, within the planning department, with respect to the tentative parcel map that was originally submitted back in January 2021. I went through almost a year and a half process through different plan check procedures, and basically about a week or two before the commission hearing in April of 2022, it was determined that the parcel had been previously subdivided in 1952 or 53 by a city council vote to have it subdivided, but it was subsequently not recorded in the county records. That was not disclosed to me, and I was unaware of the finding until the city had produced the posting requirement, which I saw that there was a discrepancy in the parcel description, at which point I advised my architect and civil engineer, and then subsequently we found out that there was indeed a problem. The date forward of the incident had been at the request of the city numerous times while they investigated the matter and consulted with various different agencies to understand exactly what transpired. Again, never was it brought to my attention that the parcel had been subdivided during this time period. I've owned the property for 5 years. We subsequently demolished a single-family residence thinking that it was non-conforming based on recommendations of staff, including various people that are within this room. And now we're trying to unwind this. Just in October, late October of 2022, in November, they assigned a new planner onto this file until he acquainted himself, until we were able to secure the services of a new civil engineer and try to get this back on track while proceeding with the certificate of compliance and filing the 2-lot subdivision prior to going with the 3-parcel tentative parcel map that we've prepared. There's a sequence of events that have to transpire. For this to be taken off calendar, we've asked the planning department not to have taken it off calendar. They've objected for whatever reason, even though that the reason we're in this situation is due to errors within that department and the way that our initial application was handled. I should not be penalized at this point for having this, these delays. We've engaged with a new civil engineer and we're working in earnest to try to move this project forward, but at every turn, we're being faced with different objections and different concerns that are being brought up. And again, I'm really an innocent party to this, not being known and not being shared that there was previously a subdivision that had been voted on and agreed to by the Glendale City Council. And now subsequently, we're trying to undo a lot of different things, and this takes time. To have to basically renote the hearing date and renotice the entire neighborhood, it's just going to cause further delays to this. And I'm going to request that the Planning Commission take into consideration why there's been delays. This has not been delays because of issues with my application. There's been delays based on issues in the way that the city has processed the application.
Okay, thank you. Any comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair, can we direct the question to our staff?
Staff.
Yeah,
Mr. Kiesel.
Can I step away?
yes.
Mr. Kiesel,
If
thank
we
you.
need you, then we'll call you back.
Okay.
I would actually maybe defer to.
Okay. Depending on your question.
Yeah, okay, I have a question.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, normally, we continue the cases on this type of matters. What is the reason? I mean, obviously, the applicant is objecting to this. So can you explain the whole sequence here, why this is being requested to be taken off the calendar versus him wanting to have it on the calendar?
Sure. It's been continued a number of times. we don't have a necessarily an idea of when we can put this back on. And so just taking it off calendar just frees up the commission agenda. It provides more transparency. Additionally, the applicant has also submitted another application. And typically, it's our practice not to have two land use applications going on at once that basically can do the same thing. In this case, a parcel map is a subdivision. There's also a lot line adjustment that was recently submitted, which is also sort of a subdivision. So those are some of the reasons why we've recommended to take it off calendar.
So, Mr. Kizza, so lot line adjustment is a little bit easier process that will benefit the applicant. That is at the route that you are recommending to go?
No, not necessarily. We're not recommending the applicant go one way or another. And they accomplish different things, but they're still in the subdivision realm. The lot line adjustment you won't see because it's a ministerial project. And that basically, the lot lines are where they're at now, and they're proposed to be moved. Still 2 lots. The parcel map will create a 3rd lot from the 2 existing lots. That you will see.
Okay, understood. So his concern was is that if you were to take it off the calendar and reschedule it, that he will have to pay again. So is that the case?
Well, he won't have to pay for the parcel map application again because he's already paid for that.
The notices, will he
The
have?
notices, we will renotice the parcel map again, frankly, regardless of whether it's continued to a date certain, and I think he's wanting, I want to say June or July, or whether we take it off calendar. Simply because at this point, it's been almost a year. It's been on the agenda a number of times, and basically for transparency purposes, we want to make sure that people are clear as to what's being proposed.
So is there still issues at hand? I mean, it's been going on for this long. Seems like the problem has been identified. So is there an issue going forward to date certain of hearing this case?
Well, we need some clarification information on the parcel map, which the applicant needs to provide. And the lot line adjustment application was just really submitted recently in the last couple weeks.
Chair and commission members, if I may, Bradley Calvert, Director of Community Development. As part of this process,
Identify yourself, please.
Bradley Calvert, Director of Community Development. As part of this process, a settlement agreement was reached with the applicant, and part of those conditions were a new planner and an expedited timeline. On October 24th, myself and the current Assistant City Manager met with the applicant and mapped out what that process would look like and how we could do that expedited timeline. We had committed to being here today on this date specifically, actually, to get an approval, provided the applicant hired an engineer. That engineer was not hired until recent weeks, therefore we were not able to make that timeline. As such, being that we have 2 essentially conflicting applications at this point, and we're not sure which one's going to move forward, Community Development, City Attorney's Office, City Manager's Office conferred and all agreed that in the interest of preserving our own integrity in terms of transparency to the public and making sure the public is properly noticed, we cannot continue to leave this kind of hanging out there, if you will. Therefore, renoticing this project would be in the best interest of the public and also in respect of our policies that we have to abide by. Additionally, the expedited review and the timeline of that is no longer guaranteed as the applicant himself is withdrawn from the settlement agreement via email.
I guess I'm still a little puzzled as to the application that you're talking about, lot line adjustment, is really not 3 lots, but it's just adjustment of the 2 lots. So you still need to do a subdivision anyways. So you still need that application.
No, you don't need a lot line adjustment application in order to process the parcel map application. Was that your question?
Well, so you're saying that there are two sets of applications right now that is conflicting. What is conflicting?
Correct. The previously submitted parcel map application and the recently submitted lot line adjustment application.
So you don't really need lot line adjustment, because that's gonna only give you two lots. So he actually needs the subdivision application, which is the original application, I think which that he is objecting to, that he wants it to continue to proceed.
Well, the applicant needs to decide which direction he wants to go in terms of maintaining two lots or going through the parcel map and creating a third lot from the two existing lots.
Are we able to go back to questions with the applicant?
I have one more question to the staff. When the case was first taken before the Planning Commission or agendized, what happened? It was supposed to be complete, that's why you put it on the agenda, and then what went wrong?
Sure. It's my understanding that we discovered this discrepancy between our records and the county assessor's records. And the subdivision that occurred in 1952, I believe, was approved by the city of Glendale to create two lots, but was never recorded at that time. And so the county assessors only sees it as one lot. That was discovered relatively late in the game, before your April of 2022 agenda.
Who was supposed to do the recording?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the condition of the lot split map, it was actually a lot split map that was approved in 1952, was that it would be recorded prior to a sale of one of the lots.
So the property owner then?
And if that's correct, and apparently that did not occur, and in order to sell a lot, a prerequisite is that you have a legal description and that was recorded, so you have two assessor parcel numbers.
Yeah.
Apparently that never occurred. So from the perspective of the assessor, there's only one lot there.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, so we'll get to the bottom of who did not do what was supposed to be done.
I could add one more fact to that, and that is that, and I don't know when this transitioned over, but 4th Avenue, where this property is located, used to be known by its alpha denomination, so 4th written out as opposed to 4th numerically. So the records that are retained in the planning department are numeric. The records that are more historic, that include the lot split map that was approved back in 1952, are alpha, meaning written out 4th Avenue. So that is a further complicating factor.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Krajan, you have a question to the property owner? Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Kiesel.
Thanks.
Am I able to rebut anything that they've said?
Well, we're not doing presentations now, but you can just respond to the
Can I
questions.
provide a closing statement if possible?
I mean, if you don't mind, I'd like to just ask you a few questions first. So, as far as the engineer timeline, can you confirm that you didn't meet a date that was required as part of a settlement agreement, and that you ultimately canceled the settlement agreement, and what the reasoning of that was?
Based on the conduct of the Mr. Calvert and various members within his department and people that are sitting here within this room, I mean, at every turn, there's been problems with this file. Instead of the city taking responsibility for the actions, the planning department taking responsibility for their actions and saying, hey, we made a mistake We apologize. No, what's happened is, and just a moment ago, Mr. Kiesel made a mention when you guys asked, how did we find out? Well, we found out. No. The way that we found out is I found out. I brought it to their attention. They were unaware. They were oblivious of the situation until the legal description was posted, and I read it, and I said, hey, to my civil engineer, look, it says 2 parcels going to 3. I said, no, it's 1 parcel going to 3. And then that's when the discussion opened up. We had a meeting with them, and it's been, a very arduous process. Even during the application process, the previous planner the work product was fraught with errors. But, we worked through it. I'm thinking April 2022, I'm going to have a hearing, and I'm going to finally be able to move forward. I'm not a big-time developer. This is a small development site, and for it to drag on now, I bought it in November 2018, and I've been given misinformation at every turn. Miss Asp that's sitting over here has given me misinformation. Various different other people have been giving me misinformation for years. And, and I've based my progress on this file based on that. The one question you asked, when did we engage with why did I pull out of the settlement agreement, was again, based on, I saw that this was not, they were talking about an expedited process, we're gonna give you courtesy, and we're gonna give you this, we're gonna give you that. Nothing was given. During a subsequent meeting with the assistant city attorney and the planning department manager, Mr. Calvert, they said that they're gonna have cooperation. This is after I pulled out of the settlement agreement. They said that they're gonna cooperate with me. We're gonna confer with each other. We're gonna work together. Nothing of the sort has happened. At every turn, they've made it very difficult in this last 2-3 months, and just objection upon objection. And I'm like, why? What does it matter? Why can't we just date forward this? Let me see what's gonna happen with the 2-lot subdivision, and then go from there. That one is just a certificate of compliance, and we wanna do a simple lot line adjustment. After that, I'm gonna have to assess and see if I wanna proceed with this tentative parcel map and see how I wanna go forward with it. It doesn't make any difference to the city, except making life just more difficult for me.
Sir, so I guess just a point of clarification. So then you submitted the more recent application. So is your preference for that to be processed first? Because just given the information we have at this point in time, we don't have a timeline, excuse me for 1 second. We don't have the timeline of events over the course of the past 2.5 years for me to take in every point of information and give you an educated response as to why, this has happened and whether it should be moved off or left on the calendar. I'm not even sure we have purview necessarily to even say anything on this item, correct? It's really just, it's getting moved anyway. So it's more so just a point of clarification that we're trying to, hear you out and understand where you're coming from on the issue.
Okay, you just brought an interesting question. So this is a done deal? You guys don't have any say-so? Is that what the city attorney is stating?
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, the issue that you're taking testimony on right now is whether or not to continue the matter or to take it off of calendar.
Right, but whether we continue, it doesn't dictate whether it'll be continued again on the next meeting. It depends internally on progress done.
I need to.
That's correct, whether or not that application is in fact ready for the Planning Commission's review and has.
I'd like to ask the staff a question. Are you done with? Okay, thank you very much, sir. We'll get back to you. Staff, what time frame are we looking at? Are you going to be ready to bring back this case within the next meeting, at the next meeting, or?
Are you speaking of the parcel map application?
Whatever is here,
The parcel
the
map
tentative
application.
parcel map case.
That's largely dependent on when the information gets submitted to us by the applicant.
So information coming from the applicant is
Correct.
holding up bringing this
Correct.
back.
Correct.
Chair and commission members, excuse me, we have in writing via email that he wanted to move this to either May, June, or July timeline in the summer.
Because I'm thinking of continuing it to a date certain if you're going to be ready by that date.
We do not have a date certain, as that was left open-ended by the applicant.
So if we have a commitment from the applicant, and the information that you need is a civil engineering information, then can we have some time frame here?
It would depend on the commitment from the applicant itself. And again, there are reservations from both the city manager's office, city attorney, and community development regarding the integrity of our noticing process if we were to carry this out further. Our standard practice is if something goes beyond 6 months, we renotice because people move, properties get sold, and there very well could be changes up there, and there will be people that will not be aware of this project as it moves forward.
Yeah, no, re-noticing, is just part of the process, but does that take, I guess, extra fee to does that involve extra money?
I would defer to Mr. Kiesel on that question. One point I would like to make to that, though, based on the comment earlier, it would not add to the timeline. It would not extend the timeline of this project to have to renotice.
Sure, it does add, part of the fee of any application, including a parcel map, is the noticing fee. And then from the applicant's side, if they engage in someone that produces the information, that's a cost to them. Offhand, I don't know, it's roughly $50 for a renoticing?
I think it's a few hundred.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, so if, let's say, applicant goes forward and complies with your requirement of getting the information to you, and instead of double dipping, is there something that isn't under your purview to waive that fee?
Yeah, we can't really waive fees.
There's Madam Chair, members of the commission, there's a provision in the code that would allow a request to go to the city council for a fee waiver.
That will take longer.
Yeah. But then other choices that will continue this, right?
There is that choice, however, with a caveat of mentioned, and that is that at a certain point, the noticing becomes stale.
Yeah.
And therefore, you have a due process issue with people in the neighborhood that may not have known about it and could make an objection based on not having received notice.
Understood.
It's protective to the applicant to have the notice done properly.
So can we ask the applicant to come back up?
This is it.
Well, we're hoping that we can mediate this here, adequately here. Obviously, city staff needs information from you, and you haven't pulled out of your settlement, and you have not provided that information. Are you willing, and when can you get this information to the city staff?
Which information? I mean, because there's a lot of moving parts in this. There's no delay on our part. As soon as they assigned a new city planner, I had a new civil engineer assigned to the file, and we started work on it. They started engaging with the new planner immediately. Any delays that have been done was due to holidays or other things. The director, Calvert, had told me that, you know what, we're going to work together and we're going to do everything in conjunction with one another. And then unilaterally, they decided to take this off calendar. The excuse that they're giving today about the lot line adjustment, that was done subsequent to them taking it off calendar. We just recently submitted that in the last 10 days, and that seems to be now a new talking point. All we're doing is just dividing up the two and recording it with the county so that if something happens and I need to try to divest of the property and abandon the application, I'm able to do so. Right now, I'm just handcuffed, have been for a couple of years now.
Okay, let me just, the only item in front of us is the tentative parcel map case. Are you able to provide all the necessary information needed for us to move forward with this case?
If you guys are able to date forward it to July, I would be able to satisfy all the requirements. I'm very confident because we've hired a new civil engineering firm. It's a larger firm. They're going to be able to respond to all the necessary requests and so forth.
It's February. Are we able to renotice and make it to the July meeting?
Madam Chair, why does it take so long? It's a topo survey,
It's
right?
too long, yeah. it's
Yeah.
been- He's saying July, so
Renoticing for a
July.
July meeting is not problematic at all at this point. We're in February. It is the submittal of the information that, you know, if it doesn't come until June, that's what's problematic at this point.
Yeah, Mr.
So-
Kizzo, okay, you probably need a topo survey. What else do you need?
You know, I don't have that list in front of me, so.
I mean, why stretch out to July? I mean, this is something that could be attained fairly quickly.
Our application was complete, ready for submittal. Again, at the 11th hour, 59th minute, I was the one who found out that there was a major problem with the description of the property. The
Yes, sir,
city never
but
brought
that has
that to
nothing to
me.
do with doing the surveys and doing,
But it was
providing the
all done.
information.
Everything was done based on what we thought the property, this was ready to come to the planning commission hearing for a decision. We had to pull it off. The city requested to pull it off because the application was completely erroneous based on the planner assigned to it not being able to identify the significant issues with the application. The city has some explaining
So
to
if
do.
you have done the survey, I think
Yes.
it won't take so many months to correct, to adjust it to the right condition.
My understanding is that, per the city attorney's letter that she presented to me on April 20th, is that we need to record with the county first, make it 2 lots, then change the legal description on the application, and then be able to bring it back in front of you guys. That's what we're trying to get to now. She gave a legal opinion based on April 20th. This is her letter, and I'll be happy to share this with the commission for you guys to review.
Has that been done?
Excuse me?
Has that been done?
It has what been done? We're in the process of
Whatever
it.
is the,
We're trying, but at every turn, now something new that they've brought forward and said that
So that must be the lot line
we need
adjustment.
to either decide to do a lot line adjustment on the two lot or withdraw the tentative parcel map for the 3 lots, which has no bearing. One has nothing to do with the other.
Commissioner Grajan.
Okay, so how I understand our current situation is whether this is removed from the agenda or continued will have no bearing on whether we see it in July or whenever the documentation is provided. My purview as a planning commissioner in this meeting is to decide on whether it's going to be either taken off the calendar, which I agree would protect the client, in this case, the applicant, my apologies, or continue to the next meeting. If it's going to be in July, I don't think it necessarily makes sense to just be continued to the next meeting. I'm not undermining that mistakes were made in the past, but ultimately, as a result of those mistakes, there need to be some revisions, whether that's on staff or on the applicant. I can't control as a planning commissioner. I just have to determine whether we should continue this to the next meeting or not. And ultimately, you know, in my opinion, if July is the date, then we should just take it off the calendar.
Yes, I agree. You agree? Yeah. Okay. Shall we take a motion to,
Thank you.
thank you very much, sir.
If somebody would like to make a motion
Motion
in a
that
second, we'll take a
we-
vote on this.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Tarachian,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Manassian,
Yes.
Chairperson Fuentes.
Yes. Okay, thank you all very much. Moving on, under new business, we have citywide zoning code text amendment, case number 0003, 2022. The project, this Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council regarding proposed amendments to 3 related codes within Titles 16 and 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code 1995. These amendments include modifications related to parking lot tree species and minor corrections to these titles to align them with existing city tree ordinance.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Fuentes. I'd like to introduce Lauren Click from Public Works, and he's going to walk you through with a PowerPoint on some of the proposed amendments related to trees in Title 16 and Title 30.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Commission members. I'm Lauren Click, the Urban Forester within Public Works. As a way of background, our forestry section within Public Works, we manage about 50,000 trees across the city. These are street trees, park trees, other city-owned trees. We also, within our section of Public Works, administer both the street tree and the indigenous tree ordinances. Those protect every street tree in the city of Glendale, as well as 6 native species of trees. That's inclusive of public and private property. We, of course, review many development plans as a result of these ordinance protections, so we are in close partnership with a lot of departments, including community development. As I move to the next slide.
I can help. Tell me when you're ready and I'll
Thank you. So at 2 council meetings in 2021, actually, staff presented on the state of the community forest. That was at council's request. We covered a range of topics. For the purpose of this meeting, we'll focus on the public and private tree ordinance issues that council requested information about. So during each meeting, we presented this information and council requested more information, generally about what other communities in our area are doing in terms of private and public tree protection. And also just generally about the forestry programs. Thank you. So during a period between these council visits, when we were coming back for a 3rd time, the Sustainability Commission reviewed our reports and suggested that Public Works expand our review to encompass all of City Code, and that would include Title 16 and Title 30. The Sustainability Commission specifically mentioned Municipal Code 30.32, which is a parking lot tree list for new parking lots, and it also codified the urban forester position as the city staff able to approve modifications to that. Sustainability felt that that list was outdated. The other was they had a comment on the design review standards in Municipal Code 30.47, specifically in terms of how projects approach tree preservation. So council met again on Arbor Day 2022. At this meeting, council also set the goal to reach 25% tree canopy coverage across the city. So what that means is that inclusive of public and private land, we would have shade over a full quarter of Glendale. That's in line with communities in our type of climate. Right now we're at 21%. We used to be above 25%, and that's been the nature of a lot of discussions with council over the last few years. So Public Works, during these meetings, we worked with council in terms of how they wanted us to approach the public tree methods of reforestation, but more research was needed for private tree protection, and council directed us to review those codes and return to them. So this is why I'm here as part of Public Works in front of your commission today. So as I mentioned, Public Works administers the Indigenous Tree Ordinance. That protects 6 different species of native trees to Glendale, and that's only if they are 6 inches in diameter. And the only exception to that is if you consider a tree with multiple stems, say 2 stems, the total stems have to be 8 inches. And that's important for the reason I'll go into in terms of Title 16. Public Works reviews most plans submitted to the city to ensure compliance with the Indigenous Tree Ordinance and the Street Tree Ordinance. We also issue permits related to pruning, removal, and encroachment on private protected trees and city street trees. So in reviewing these codes, we identified 4 codes which we thought were incongruous with the existing Indigenous Tree Ordinance, and then we also considered modifications to those codes recommended by the Sustainability Commission. So within Title 16, there are 3 portions of code that we suggest modification. Requirements exist to depict all trees over 8 inches on plans. Public Works staff has run into an issue on a fairly frequent basis where protected indigenous trees are not identified on plans when they fall into that 6 to 7 inch range, because maybe the applicant, when they're doing their survey of trees, they don't include those. They're not aware, perhaps, if they are a protected species or not, because, of course, applicants might not necessarily be able to identify these trees on site. This is particularly important because one of our protected trees, this is called the scrub oak, this tree is typically only about 6 to 8 inches in size. And so what that means is that those trees can be missed, and if that's discovered as part of this process, it does require resubmittals, sometimes project modifications, and delays to that process. So Public Works proposes aligning those codes with the Indigenous Tree Ordinance and require trees over 6 inches to be depicted on plans, as these sites are being surveyed already for that 8-inch requirement, and this would make sure that we can capture or at least see on site any of those protected trees. So within Title 30, there's also 3 codes proposed for modification, but I'll go into each of those separately since they relate to different aspects. So the first one, it just relates to Americana signage pruning. Generally, city street trees cannot be pruned by a private party without prior consent by the city. That's either in the form of a permit issued by Public Works or a covenant agreed between the property owner and the city. So the Americana has this approval. However, our proposed modification would just be a single sentence that clarifies that approval is needed by the Department of Public Works, or pardon me, from the Department of Public Works. And that's just to ensure clarity where if people in other parts of the city are looking at the city ordinance, that they'd understand that approval was needed before pruning. And that takes us to the parking lot trees. So parking lots are an area that are important to consider for that 25% tree canopy goal. A lot of times these parking lots, they're in dense urban areas. They have a lot of open hardscape, which can increase the heat of a given area. So these are areas we want to target, and we want to give developers that are working on these parking lots the tools to adequately forest them. And so unfortunately, with our existing parking lot requirements, Public Works feels they're not in line with the city's current goals. For one, our current code has a list, a specific list of tree species, and we don't recommend having a codified list. That's because disease, pests, and nursery availability can impact what type of trees are available. So for example, with our current list of about 36 species plus some cultivars, about a third of those in our estimation are either not available or they're not suited for a parking lot situation where you have a small cutout and it's not a conducive environment to a tree, even with some supplemental irrigation. And of course, we expect our climate to continue to shift, and that's a consideration that we take into account in Public Works as well. So what Public Works proposes is we have a designated street tree list that is part of our community forest management plan, which is reviewed every 5 years. We're currently undergoing one of those reviews now. And it basically sets 1 to 3 species for each city block. And so what Public Works proposes is providing that list of each individual species that's found across Glendale that Public Works feels is an appropriate tree for our region and expected future climate. And that list would be available to applicants, to CDD, and as well on the city website in relevant spots. And the other proposed change is technical, in which we recommend following existing practice in the ordinances administered by Public Works, where the Director of Public Works should approve modifications to species rather than the urban forester. That gives the Director the ability to have a designee that's not just necessarily the urban forester. And then finally, design review standards. In this section, we also identified one of those inconsistencies with the Indigenous Tree Ordinance with that difference between 8 inches and 6 inches of protected trees. So we respectfully recommend changing this to 6 inches as the codes within Title 16. In terms of the Sustainability Commission's recommendation about considering tree preservation more carefully in terms of submittals, again, we review every plan in Public Works that's submitted to the city, or most plans that are submitted to the city, even when they don't have trees, often just to ensure that there's no protected trees on site or adjacent as city trees. Sometimes we do have to request modifications to plans. That might be modifying a landscape plan, something simple just to not injure an existing oak tree. But it could be something major that we suggest, such as moving a driveway as to preserve existing city or private trees. And occasionally we do suggest modifications to construction design or placement of structures as to better preserve existing trees. So our goal in doing so is to preserve the most and largest trees that we can, while allowing the reasonable development of that property based on what we were told by our colleagues at Community Development. So this is made much easier when applicants take into consideration the protection of trees on site. When projects do not encroach on protected trees, it waives a code requirement for us within the Indigenous Tree Ordinance where applicants aren't required to submit an independent arborist report. It also often means that Public Works won't require tree monitoring during construction if those trees are not encroached upon, and often will require fewer, if any, temporary tree protection measures as long as those trees are not accessible to construction. And so that's why Public Works feels it would benefit applicants to understand that they shall consider the preservation of trees when they design a submittal rather than should. Of course, these reports that are submitted, they often state what that minor plan modification could be to preserve an existing tree. We often hear if this structure or garage is moved 5 feet this way, it could preserve the tree, and then we refer back to community development to see if that type of modification is possible and work with the applicant. So we understand this is a minor change. It's not necessarily enforceable. It doesn't necessarily require anything new from the applicants, but Public Works does feel it's worthwhile to emphasize the importance in Glendale of preserving trees and hopefully streamline the plan review process for applicants that do take that into consideration and are able to avoid encroaching on trees. So in summary, Public Works recommends the modifications proposed today to Titles 16 and 30 to align those with existing city policy and practices. And again, the goal of these modifications is to attempt to streamline some of these project processes for applicants, particularly with city trees. And of course, I'm happy to answer questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Any question? Yeah.
I guess your last comments on the encroachment of the trees and the sustainability of those trees. I understand all that, but it seems like it's putting unnecessary kind of undue hardship on developers if they have designed in certain ways that is most efficient for the development to be functional. And the trees in the way now, they have to reconsider, redesign the entire, design to go around that tree. So it doesn't sound efficient to me.
Sure. Chairperson Fuentes, Commissioner Lee. So this is again part of what we call reasonable development. And so the type of use case, I think, in this type of example would be, for example, a project where an ADU would be sited in a large open lot directly on top of an existing oak tree. Maybe that is the ideal location based on existing utilities or some other considerations. And that's where we work with community development to understand, is this sited here because of requirements that the city of Glendale has, or is there an option to move it here? And if so, can we move it slightly to preserve the tree? We'd still encroach on the tree. And so the intent would be for those type of situations. But of course, there's plenty of projects where it's a small lot, there's an oak tree. The reasonable development is or the reasonable use of that property is to develop the lot. And in that case, we do have actions with the ordinance, such as on-site replacement of removed trees or in lieu replacement where the applicant can pay a fee and the city plants those trees elsewhere in the city.
That sounds reasonable. The reason I asked that question was that when you're replacing should with a shall, when someone says shall, it's just like a written on stone, type of thing. So I don't know if that was a right thing to do. If we do have an option to mitigate in certain ways, then I think the language of should fits better than thou shalt do this type of thing.
Okay.
My opinion.
If I could just throw in the language to say shall be considered. So it's not, so it shall be considered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall return. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, any other? And I know for a fact the tree ordinance, sometimes even the design review board will consider relocation when it's properly supervised by the urban forester, or sometimes replacing for the value of the trees also. So, thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to entertain a motion recommending approval of the proposed amendments to City Council.
So moved.
So move.
A second?
Second.
Roll call, Commissioner Tarachian,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Manassian.
Yes.
Chairperson Fuentes.
Yes. Any Community Development Department updates? Thank you.
There are no updates at this time.
Are we looking at any cases for within the next 2 weeks?
For the first, for the 15th, no, but
Nothing.
likely in March.
Also, I sent an email to the staff asking about that discussion we had on remote, when a commissioner is out of the state or away. Any update or news on that?
Yes, Chairperson Fuentes and members of the commission, I've been in conversation with Ms. Asp about putting together a guideline because there are specific requirements that are part of the new law that went in effect in the first of the year and how they can be used for emergency purposes. Just cause, there's a just cause component,
Correct,
and then there
yeah.
are emergency purposes, and the type of notice that would be required and whether a vote would be required so that the other commission members agree that this is appropriate. So there's almost like a finding process that needs to be made, and we want to be sure that we provide the appropriate guidance for the commissions that they can walk through that. So that's one thing. But commission members always still have the same opportunity to participate remotely if they do the proper noticing, if they're in a public location, the address is disclosed, if the public is able to, the address and the agenda are disclosed, people at that location have the opportunity to participate. So that's always still available. This is just a new component
Okay.
to that. We want to make sure if something like that comes up, and it would be for childcare or contagious illness or needs related to mental or physical disability, travel while on business of the legislative body, that would be this just cause component. And then there's the emergency circumstances component, which have to be established, whether or not indeed it's an emergency circumstance. The description, there should be a description provided, no more than 20 words from the member, although they need not disclose the specifics if it's medical related, so on and so forth. So you can see how we want to really flesh this out so we can anticipate and answer as many questions about it in the process when we give that to you. So that's coming up. We're still
Okay,
working on
thank you.
that. We're trying to get that to all the boards and commissions.
Thank you.
You're
I'm sure
welcome.
it will come back to us. And okay, before adjournment, again, I want to thank Commissioner Lee for having served last year. Thank you very much for your service, and thank you all for vote of confidence. Adjournment.
All right.
So adjourn. Okay, thank you.